right, we are live, direct, with another interview. I got a very special guest here today. Um, Want to give this brother so much respect. He was one of the first rock dancers in the Bronx. I don't want to talk too much about him. I want him to come on and give you his story. Um, yeah, really excited about this brother. I've heard so much stories about him. Everybody that I know um, talks very highly of him. And yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to bring my brother on, Mr. DEE DEE. How you
How
doing,
you
brother?
doing? I'm doing fine, so I'm doing good.
Good.
Yeah, glad
Well,
to be
listen,
on.
thank you, bro. Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you to you for taking the time out to talk to me, talk to us about your history. And I know we've been talking on the phone the last
Yeah.
couple weeks or what have you, and I've been learning a lot from you, and
Mm,
I just want to say thank you. And I'm glad that we have this opportunity to share your story, which I feel is
mm.
super important to the dance, to the street
Right.
dance culture, the New York street dance culture. Rock dance, b-boy, and breaking, and all that's all
Yeah.
connected. So super happy to have you on here. Tell your story.
Okay, doc. Thank you. I'm here.
All right. Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's get right into it, brother. Brother DEE DEE, can you talk to us a little bit about where you're from? What is your background? Maybe where your parents are
Mm.
from, where
Mm.
you were born and raised?
Right. Well, I was born and raised in Manhattan on 126th Street in Lexington, and my mother is Puerto Rican. My father's Puerto Rican. My mother's from. They're both, matter of fact, from Ponce. And my father's one of the Pejots from Victor Pejot's family, the baseball player. And yeah, so my mother and them moved. My mother came down here in 1945 from Puerto Rico after everything that was going on in Puerto Rico. And then, we started living here in what they call Spanish Harlem. We lived everywhere, 110th Street in Lexington and 103rd, 125th, 126th. My mother was like a gypsy. So yeah, that's where I was born and raised, and then when I was like 7, 8 years old, we moved to the Bronx, and yeah, the South Bronx was a whole new world for me. There's a lot of gang activity going on and stuff like that and all that, and that's when the young lords were out there, and they did their thing and all that. So. I used to be one of the guys from the baby young lords that we used to give technic shots out to the kids and give them lunches and stuff like that. So I grew up all around all that stuff, but Bronx was really, compared to Manhattan, it was really bad.
Okay,
One building, yeah, one building up, like 10 down. It was like a bombs have hit it and all that and all that. And I had to grow up a whole different way of learning how to do things. A lot of gangs.
got you. Let me
Yeah,
ask you this.
you
Let me
know.
ask you this. We're talking about Spanish Harlem.
Mm.
What was Spanish Harlem like then, when you lived there compared to now? And did you have was there yeah, what was Spanish Harlem like back then?
Well, it was rough for me growing up because at that time there was a lot of Irish and Italians growing up and all that, and it wasn't easy growing up around them. Let me tell you something. It was very rough growing up. We were poor. Not poor. We didn't have it. Because we never considered ourselves like poor. I didn't know what poor meant. I just thought that's how we lived. So and all that. But yeah, it was pretty rough. A lot of gang fights. No colors and none of that. You just would be a whole bunch of Puerto Ricans. It was like West Side Story. There's the Puerto Ricans coming this way, the Italians coming that way, and boom, they would clash and all that. My mother would scream for me to get upstairs and da da da. And that's why one of the reasons we moved to the Bronx. But when we moved to the Bronx, we didn't know what was waiting for us over there. Yeah,
Got
no, they didn't. My mother didn't do research. I wish we would have
got you.
stood in Manhattan, but
Cool.
it is
Okay,
what it
so
is.
so you guys moved to the Bronx, and area of the Bronx did you move to? And you talked a little bit about the difference. Can you elaborate more about the difference? And when did you move?
I think we moved in 1960. I think 65 or something like that. Yeah, 1965 or something like that. My mother, or 1960s. I don't know. I remember we were young and all that. I remember when John F. K. Got assassinated, all that stuff. And I think we already had gotten to the Bronx because I was doing a lot of fighting over here in Manhattan. So my mother said, "No, no, we're gonna move him. We're gonna move to the Bronx and all that stuff and all that," because I was getting that fever, seeing everybody fighting all the time. That it was like a magnet. So yeah, we moved. I think it was the 1960s or I got see. Because remember, I was born 1955. Yeah, so I would say, yeah, uh, yeah. Wait, I might have that wrong. 1960. I was born 1955. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 1960. No, man. Matter of fact, I got that wrong. My mother now lived in the 1960s all the way to from the 1945 or 50. No, hold on, 1945 or 50.
Mhm.
My mother and them were in New York, in Spanish Harlem, and then we moved to the Bronx when I remember moving to the Bronx when I was 7 years old. So 7, 8 years old. So yeah, and it was 1950. Yeah, my mother moved to the Bronx. I think 1950, 1950.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
So
you say you say you were born in 55?
right. Yeah.
55.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I remember.
So and then you said you were 7 years old when you moved to the Bronx, right?
Yeah,
Seven,
7 to 8 years old.
7 or
I
8.
remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that means that would be like 62 or 3.
right. 62 or 3. I might have the records a little wrong. I never really paid a lot to dates and all that stuff. Like, and I don't know. I never really. I just kept living like that. I see whatever came. That was one of those type of guys que nunca estaba pendiente. Que
Okay.
año era, unless something drastic would happen, and then like I remember with John F. K. assassination, all those things like that, 1962, and then I just try to move on and all that. But I remember moving to the Bronx was just from Manhattan because we lived all over Manhattan, Third Avenue, First Avenue, not even First Avenue, just Lexington, Third Avenue, Second Avenue. Like that, Lexington was a big part of my life. 125th, 126th, 116, and 110th.
Nice.
And those, my mother moved a lot. That's how I became a painter because before the paint dried in one apartment, we already were painting the other one. You
Okay.
know, so
All right,
you know,
cool. So you lived all over Manhattan actually.
yeah, yeah. For a while, yeah. That's
Okay.
when they had the what they call that it's the farmers thing, la maqueta.
Uh-huh.
I remember walking all through the Maqueta in Manhattan when they used to be inside, and you would go through all these right under the train, and you go from one end to the other, and they had all the fruits, everything. It was a beautiful place that all the Latinos and Puerto Ricans used to go do their shopping there.
Okay.
It was a beautiful thing. Yeah,
Okay.
Manhattan was good too. Manhattan was a lot of fun too. We did a lot of fun too. But the Bronx was more. I grew up more in the Bronx with more people around me. You understand? Like I started learning more about socializing and being around more people and stuff like that. Because
Got you.
usually we grew up, it was mostly with me and my brothers and cousins. Mm.
Okay.
And
All right, cool.
yeah,
So, all right, so
yeah,
you moved to the Bronx, early 60s.
yeah,
Now, you said that you got more sociable in the
yeah,
Bronx, started hanging out maybe a little bit more. Um,
yeah, yeah. Because
and
in those days, we didn't have like the games and all videos and all the stuff that kids have now. Everything was in the street. Stick ball, stoop ball, Skelsies, Johnny on the Pony. Whoever's an old timer knows all these things. Ringo Livio, hide and seek, all that stuff. So
Mhm.
we usually played in the street. Stick ball, And and for our mother used to have to call us to go upstairs. Not like now, you go inside, and the TV is always upstairs, and the videos or playing games. We never had all that stuff, so we didn't really care. We had a lot of fun because everybody knew each other and everybody looked for each other. You know,
Gotcha.
and so
Okay. All right.
yeah,
So now, can you talk to us a little bit about what the gang situation was? The street gangs, street families, the clubs and cliques, whatever you want
yeah,
to call them.
yeah. What?
Can you talk to us a little bit about how you got involved with that
Yeah,
and what that was
right,
like for you?
right. Okay. When I grew up in Crimmins and Beach Terrace, right? It was like Crimmins was down, and then you walk some steps. Then it was Beach Terrace and this and that. So when we moved there, I lived on Beekman, and then they had this gang there called the Noble Gents. The leader was, I'll never forget him, Marcelo and Victor and Roberto and them and all that. And so they didn't like me too much because I came from Manhattan and this and that. And they said I was a wise guy. So they used to sick the bully on me. The leader, one of the leaders, his name was Carlito. He was leader of the young cats there and all that. And so when we moved to the Bronx, my mother made me promise never to fight. And I was like, oh, she was like, you got to promise me you're not going to fight. That's why we're moving over here. Da, da, da. I was like, you see, mommy, está bien, y ya. So when that guy Carlos came around, and he used to, at those days, they used to have a garrison belt, real thick, and they would whip people with it. It wasn't no pygmy. It's called the garrison belt. I don't know what they call it now, if they're still around. Pero eso picaba, cuando te daban un cantazo, in other words, and all that. He used to come around and he would hit my cousins, my brother, something and all that. And I wanted to do him up, but my mother and them were like, big like, no, remember your promise, we'll work it out. But I remember one time that I got into an argument with Marcelo, the leader of the big guys, and he told me, "Don't worry, I got somebody for you." So obviously he sent for little Carlito, but he don't know that my mother that day Carlito had whipped my cousin, and my mother said enough was enough and all that. She said next time he comes to you and all that, puede pelear. What I beat that guy like Tito Puente on drums. And then then Marcelo didn't like that so much, and then he said, "Well, now you're the new leader." And I
Wow.
became the leader of the young noble gents, and that's how I got into gangs. And
Wow.
we didn't wear colors at that time, but yeah, that's how I got into it and all that. I was like, all right, yeah, but he was a bad kid, that guy Calito. But bullies always get it, you know what I mean. But I was bad when in Manhattan, but I was so bad they used to. There was a club upstairs for boxing, and I used to box a little bit, and I used to be downstairs, and they used to make me watch their congas or whatever they had, and they would go upstairs to do whatever. And entonces, they would give me like a quarter or something like that, which was a big deal at that time. A quarter was a big deal and all that and stuff. So I learned from the big guys never to be a bully, but always to defend yourself and all that. So when
Yeah.
I became Marcelo's little leader and all that, then I started meeting a whole bunch of guys that were from the neighborhood. That all of a sudden I was their leader. I didn't even know how I got there. I was like, oh, all right, and that was it. And from there we were into gangs. But that wasn't a gangs like the gangs after that came after with the colors and the combat boots and all that stuff. That came later in life. You
Okay.
know. You
Okay.
know.
So would you say this is like the mid to late 60s?
Yeah, yeah, because the noble gents disbanded because some of them went into the army,
Hmm.
and the big guys, some of them went into the army and this and that and all that, so they disbanded. So we were the young noble gents. Now we had grown up and all that, but we weren't into the gang like that and all that because we didn't have no supervision. We didn't have them on top of us. So the guys slacked off on the neighborhood. Everybody was like, ah. But what happened was in the early 68, 69. Yes, I don't gangs to come into our block and terrorize us and all that. And we would be like, yo, who the hell these niggas on? Blah, blah, blah. And we'd be playing stick ball or something like that. They would march in and, start whipping guys, and we would be fighting, and we don't know why we're fighting. And then we see the colors, like where Imperial Bachelors were
Mm.
one of the worst, where Willie comes from,
Mhm.
and all that. And and they were the worst bullies ever and all that. So then we had to make our own gang, So I became the leader of the Brothers of Satan, which I hate that name now. I never knew why I picked that name or who gave me us that name, but that's what we were. But then we grew strong, Then we were like, we were 25 to 30 in the block, and I had like 5, 6, 7 divisions, and I was the leader of that gang. Then they had the Savage Skulls, they had the Savage Nomads, like I said, the Bachelors, the Roman Kings, Ghetto Brothers, Reapers, Jasmines. You know, there was so many, gangs out there and all that.
Okay.
Black Spades, the Black Spades were very big too. I mean,
Okay.
they were big.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me ask. Okay, that's great. That's perfect. So let me ask you this. So you're saying first you got into the gang, and this is a different style of gang. There was no colors or
Yeah,
anything like that. It was a neighborhood
yeah.
gang. And what
Right.
neighborhood you said was your first gang?
It was Beach Terrace.
Beach Terrace.
It's
Okay.
called Beach Terrace, and then it was from Beach Terrace to Criminals to Oak Terrace. We ran
Okay.
that whole little section there. You
Okay.
know,
And that's in the South Bronx, correct?
yeah, South Bronx,
Okay.
right by St. Mary's Park, right by St. Mary's Park.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then do you remember any of the going back to your first gang? Do you remember any of the other gangs around there at that time?
No, I don't. I don't remember because they used to make us disappear. They would be like, "Yo, get upstairs, get up, go inside." They never let us really see like any because they really didn't wear colors. They just will put a tag on the block like this is the Noble Gents area and stuff like that. I never seen them like with colors, like say with the shirts like Noble Gents or anything like that. But
Okay.
the emblem of the Noble Gents was similar to the Bachelors. I think the Noble Gents had it first, and I don't know how the Bachelors got it, but that's the Bachelors emblem too, with the cane, the top hat, and the gloves and stuff like that. So who knows where they got it from and all that. So
Okay.
yeah, but they were our main enemy anyway.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Now, let me ask you this before we move on to.
yeah,
I just want to ask this question. As
okay,
far as the your first gang, and this is
mhm,
mid-60s, right? What
right,
was
yeah.
going on musically? Like at that time, do you remember like the type of music that was popular in the first your first gang? And you were probably what, like 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like 10 years ago and all that. Yeah, it was a lot of music like revolutionary music like uh um Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, do the tighten up, and all that stuff and all that. And guys used to play outside and all that. But it was mostly at that time we had a lot of white music like the Beatles and Rascals and stuff like that. And we were growing up mostly on that kind of music and all that. And then we started getting into Motown, when we started hearing, Eddie Kendricks and all of them, and the Temptations, the OJs, and all that, and this and that, Marvin Gaye, all that. Then when that hit us, we were stuck to it like magnets.
Okay.
Diana Ross, all that. That's the way we grew up with the old timers from Motown. Our music came from Motown. We went to the Motown music. You
Okay.
know.
Now let
Mhm.
me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Nash like ethnically or what was the like the rate, like was there different was it multiracial your guys's cliques or
Oh
was
yeah, listen, yeah, in my groups and all that. I don't. We never. To tell you the truth, we never thought like black. This guy's black. This guy's Puerto Rican. This guy's Mexican. This guy's that. We never Dominican. We never cared about that shit, man. I mean, I hate to say it like that. Can I talk honestly? I'm just saying, we never cared to
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
that shit because we just played together, hanged out together, danced together, sang together because that's what we were about. We wasn't into like, oh, you black, oh, you this, you that. It wasn't a big deal to us like that. Like we didn't grow up like that. I don't know. And at the end, people started putting labels on each other. Oh, you black, you're Dominican, this and that. I didn't even know what a Dominican was. I didn't even know. I didn't know that some of my friends were Dominicans, and I didn't know. I thought everybody was Puerto Rican, or that they spoke Spanish. Nobody was breaking it down to say, no, este es un dominicano, este es un cubano, este es un de. All that came later in life. Unfortunately for us, the way the
Okay.
world is now, the way the world is now, 'cause everybody got labels. But
Okay.
before everybody, we all hanged out. We all hanged out. We all played. We all ate out of the same plate. Nobody here like, oh, I'm not gonna eat out of that guy's plate. Man, I used to. Matter of fact, I used to steal chicken from Miss May, que era morena. Yo le robaba like pollo con cojones. She used to chase me with a stick. But
Okay.
yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. We didn't have much, but we had our friendship. That's all I can say.
Okay.
And we cherish that. I never had problems like that. Racial problems, no.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Great.
All right.
So, all right. So now you're moving from the first for your first gang, and then later on, in the late '60s, comes this other style gang, and that would you
Yeah.
say more of like an outlaw style,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
colors, more of what is it?
Yeah.
Um,
You know. Yeah,
what is
more like
it?
a Hell's Angels
Hells
type,
Angels. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
said.
that like that
Hells
with the
Angels.
colors and the emblems and the back and you had your that's and all that. Yeah, so we were the brothers saying, like I said, I don't know why that name came up or where it came up, but that was the name they picked. They put me as a leader and this and that, and all. I didn't really want to be a leader, but I did it for the neighborhood. I was like, all right, all right, all right, all right, I'll do it, and this and that, to protect the neighborhood because the neighborhood was getting ramshacked by the gang, so we had to protect ourselves because it was getting out of hand. And then we had the black space right around the corner. We had the bachelors over the hill in St. Mary's. We had the Roman Kings down the block. So it was you had to know how to defend your territory. In other words, all of a sudden we became territorial. So that's how it was. It wasn't. As I think of it now, I go, but that was part of life at that time. You know, that's what I see.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, yeah,
Okay. So, all right. So let me ask you this:
yeah.
was there a style of dance, or what they call burning, like doing the gestures, to battle,
Right,
like I
right.
don't know, different.
Listen, when I was right, okay, when I was growing up as a young man, look, Beekman and all that stuff and all that, everybody was doing the bump, whatever mostly what Soul Train was doing and this and that. We would follow some of Soul Train, what Michael Jackson and them were doing and this and that and all that. We didn't really had no break dancing and all that at that time. I mean, I don't know if people broke dance against each other and all that, but we would snap with each other. Hey, do this step and you did that and this and that and all that. But we never thought about it as a contest or anything like that. That came way after, as we kept growing older and older and all that. And because, like I said, when I first started learning about dancing like that was when I went to Manhattan one night and I don't know if I can start this story now with Paulie and all that I saw him dance and then, or you want me to wait on that? I'll wait on that.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, let's
Yeah.
before you get
Okay.
into that.
Okay.
Before you get into that, I want to
All right.
stay in this gang period real quick.
All
Just
right.
ask a couple more questions. As far as the dancing, so you're saying like there was no serious dancing as far as your experience in the gang
Right.
before
Right.
the clubs and before the freestyle rock and all that. In
Right.
the gang
Right.
era, you didn't really dance that much.
Yeah, no, we danced, but we didn't really dance that much because we were in the streets playing. And
Hmm.
like I said, the Bronx was tore up, and we were playing and all that stuff in the streets. And like we took a stick and a ball, and we made a team, and we used it on the stoop, and it called stoop ball. We had the shuffle that we would steal the chapitas from the school, the chair, and we would play this game called Skelsies when you go in a box and you go from 1 to 13, and you come back and you knock the other guy's chapita out and this and that. We had the tops, the topos, the and stuff like that. We really didn't do that. We had played a lot of Johnny on the Pony, Ringo Livio, stuff like that, and all that. So
Okay.
It wasn't all that. So
Okay.
that's the music wasn't. It was all right because we had music, but we wasn't like music bound. Like let's as we grew up, as we started evolving, just like the Bronx was evolving, and we as people, matter of fact, were evolving because they had pushed us back so far back they didn't want us to progress at all. So it took a while for us to get to where we at. You know what I mean? To get to us enjoying us really self with music and all that stuff and all that. So
What
Motown had a
um
lot to do with it though.
what about like Boogaloo? You remember that?
Oh
Like
yeah,
Boogaloo.
when my mother and them all danced. I'm glad you bring that up. Yeah, when my mother danced the Boogaloo and all that with Joe Cuba and all them and all that. Yeah, we were learning the houses. With the old times, the family would be dancing and they be dancing, and then your mother will grab you and make you dance, or and stuff like that, and you would dance with your cousins and this and that and all that, and like that. That's all, but it wasn't no contest or nothing like that. It was just growing up. It was growing up, Boogaloo and all that, Tito Puente and all those people and all that, and
Okay.
then we said, and then in those days, believe it or not, they used to like the Fania All Star, like Miranda and all these guys, they used to do, even though the blocks were tore up, they would come and they would set up their band and they would play music. And I don't know if you saw our Latin thing. Those stories, that's not just a film like that. That made us feel proud, even though you saw how the neighborhood looked, but it made us feel proud. I remember seeing some of them like that when I was young, like Hector Lavoy and Miranda and all these guys, and they would come to by St. Mary's Park, People's Park, and you would go and you would be there, and you hang out with the people. They'd be selling piragua and all that stuff, and you grew up like that. And then because the Fania, I think what they were doing was grabbing all the neighborhoods. So as they got bigger and bigger, and then when they said, "Yo, we're gonna throw a show," or we're gonna play at this place, and then everybody that was from the streets that heard them said, "All right, we're gonna go and see that band. We like that band. Vamos para allá," you know,
Okay. I
and that's
see.
how it was.
Got you. All right. Now, just a couple more questions about
All right,
the gang era.
all right,
And I just want to clarify. Now, a lot of people talk about this style of burning, which you're doing disses, you're doing gestures like maybe a shotgun, or
right,
maybe you like, do something like that, and like just clowning on each other and stuff
right,
like that.
right.
Did you ever see that, or do you ever participate in anything like that?
No, I never participated in that when I was young, like dancing against somebody and this and that, and not something serious that I knew and this and that. As I got older and learned about dancing and knew that there was battles and this and that and all that, then I took it real serious.
Hmm.
All that. But when I was a young man, I didn't really. I would dance with my friends, and I would go do this and you do that, and he would be like, you can't do this, and I'd say, yeah, but you can't do this and that, and we would joke around and snap about it and all that. But we weren't mad at each other or like
No,
that,
no.
so we would just still hang out the same way we started, the same way we finished. Is
Got
in
you.
the older days that it got more serious, it got more technical, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All
And
right.
the last question I want to ask you about this is the Ghetto Brothers. Now,
Right.
I think Black Yellow Benji,
Right.
he passed away. I think it was 8 years.
Right. Yeah.
I think either today or
Yeah.
around today. It was like yesterday
Right.
or something like that. He just his death was 8 years ago around this time. So want to give a huge salute to Yellow Benji.
Me too.
Did you know the Ghetto Brothers?
No, I didn't know him. I knew a couple of them that from there and all that, but I don't remember their names right now because it was a passerby like high and by. Nobody really socialized when the gangs started putting on colors. There wasn't too much socializing going on. You belong there, you belong there. You were here, you belong there.
Mhm.
It wasn't like, hey, what you doing in that crowd? You would be a traitor, you would get a beat down, or so it wasn't a good thing. People started changing. Even some of my boys belong to other gangs. That even they grew up with us. That they grew. I was the brother of the scene, and I had guys that were joined the Savage Cause. Some joined the Bachelors, and you were like, yo, what the hell's going on? They were like, oh, I like their colors. I like being with them, and I like this. So people grew up and went different ways. and all that, which was funny, but at the same way, that's what it was, and all that. But when the boundary lines were made, they were made. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You stick to your area and don't come over here. There won't be no problems. You come through here, there won't be no problems. And if you come through here, you got to flip your colors. You got to take your colors, flip them over. You can put them back on, but you can't have your emblems showing and all that. And that created a lot of problems. You know,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
you know.
Okay. So, all right. So, what about the Whole Avenue Peace Treaty at on in '71 at the Boys and
Yeah,
Girls Club? Were
yeah,
you a part of that
yes,
event? And what
yes,
could you
I was.
say about that?
Well, that was an event because it was a thing of there was these gangs. To talk frankly, called the Golden Guineas. They used to be called that and all that. No offense for now, but they were the Italian gangs that they used to come up from Fordham Road and all that stuff up there, and they used to come down to St. Mary's Park and beat people up, hang people, and do crazy stuff, leave a lot of people beat down in different areas. So all the gangs got tired of it, and they decided to meet, and that's when all the gangs, well, there was like 20 different gangs there, went to the boys club there in Whole Avenue and all that. And we decided to unite and not fight. We had a peace treaty that with no more fighting amongst ourselves. And we were going to unite to fight them. And that's what we did. And after that, they didn't come down to St. Mary's Park no more because we had the St. Mary's Park locked down. If they go in there, they were been done. They couldn't get out. We had so many different guys patrolling different areas. It was crazy, and they never came down no more. That ended. That ended. But yeah, that's why we had the meeting. That I remember being in the meeting. That's why we were in the meeting to stop the fighting, unite, and after that we stood united for a long time, which was a good thing. But the cops didn't like that. The police didn't like that. What the police used to do was they used to go to one block and say, "Hey, this gang is gonna come to you at 8:30," and then they would go to another block and tell the other gang, "Hey, this gang is gonna come on you at 9 o'clock." And at 9:30, you're both rumbling, and the cops are sitting in the background just waiting to pick up the pieces.
Hmm.
And so we didn't learn that. We were like, "Oh my God, look, these guys are setting us up," because we didn't know that they said that you guys were coming at this time, and we were like, "No, you said that you were coming." No, we didn't say that. The cops told us. That's what the cops told us, and then we were like, "Oh, they set us up," and that's how we learned that even cops, boy, that's how they did it in the old days, though.
Got you.
And we didn't know that up till a while.
Okay. So
All
would
right.
you so would you say definitely the peace treaty was a success, that it helped unite you guys, and
Well,
maybe do
yeah,
something
it
positive
did.
for the community?
Yeah, it did. It did for a long time. A lot of people didn't stick to it. Maybe a lot of gangs didn't, but a lot of gangs in my area, we stuck to it because the rumbles really seemed to calm down. There was no more trouble with us in the Bachelors, no more trouble with us in the Ghetto Brothers, no more trouble with us in the Roman King. Nobody, I don't know. And I think it started winding down. I think people were like, "Oh man, is this gonna be this thing of fighting all the time and all that," because those battles were getting out of hand, and people were like, "Oh." And then when these people stopped coming down terrorizing us, the only one terrorizing us was each other. And I think that's when people started going dancing and all that. I think people started saying, "Yo, there's other things to go." I know that's when I started. I took off my colors. When I took off my colors was I got arrested when I was 16 years old. I just hit 16. I don't even think it was 2 weeks. And my boys, two of my boys were there, and I was arguing with my girl that she didn't listen to go into school, and she didn't want to listen. So I was arguing with her to go into the class, and she didn't listen. And my boys were playing with the thing called the zip gun that they used to make it out of the wood and the pipe and this and that. And since the cops told me that they were going to grab me sooner or later, and while I'm arguing with her, they're playing with the zip gun, and then they threw it because the cops pulled up the details that said they were going to get me. And since they arrested all of us, but since all of them were underage, I was the only one that hit 16, which I was underage too. But I'm the only one that went to jail. I went to Rikers Island. They sent me right away. So I was there for 7 days. And those 7 days, I had 110 guys in my gang. I said, "Man, my bail's $100. Bail's $100. I'll be out tonight. Got arrested on a Monday, and Monday passed, Tuesday passed, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know who got me out? My mother. And when my mother took me out of the jail, I was like, yo, I ain't going back to that place, Rikers Island. I ain't like it. Didn't want to go back. And right there, when I got out, I took off my colors right there on 138th Street in Brook Avenue and burned them up right there and said, I'm done. And I put my war counselor and my vice president on check. And I was like, listen, y'all want to keep going, you'll keep going. But I couldn't believe y'all left me in there with $100 bail. And I got 100 guys in a gang. That just didn't make no sense to me. Like I said, I knew a lot of common sense. I said, listen, I took it off and I never wore colors again in my life.
Gotcha.
And I just said, and I was 16 years old, and I was like, no, that's it for me. There'll be no more gangs. Rikers Island, it was like that program, Scared Straight. It showed me that jail is not for me.
Perfect.
And thank God I haven't touched it again ever.
That's awesome. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 16. That would make it 1971, which is
Right.
perfect. And you left the gangs alone after the peace treaty and
Right.
getting into some trouble. Now you're getting into dance, right?
Right.
So talk to us about the dance. How did that start? How did that start for you?
Okay. One of my boys that was older, he was like, I even forgot who it was. He took me downtown. He was like, listen, I'm going downtown, man. You don't want to be in no more gangs. You don't want to be around that. Come with me downtown so you can see that there's another world besides this and all that. So we went downtown, and it was like 12 or 1 o'clock at night. We were, we got there early, like 11 or 12. But at 1 o'clock at night, this guy came out and he was saying, oh, yeah, that's that guy, Paulie. Everybody loves the way he dances. And I was like, who? And that was like, let me see. And I was watching and I was like, wow, this guy he danced a freestyle dance. He danced a little Fred Astaire, a little, who's the Gene Kelly style and all that. He was doing spins and all that, this and that, and without touching the floor. That's what I'm saying about break dancing and the way we dance. We didn't touch the floor like that. I don't know. He never touched the floor. It looked like he was gonna get close to the floor, but he ain't never touched the floor. And he would do spins and he would jump back and he would do another spin and then you do a couple of moves and you do a spin. And I was like, yo, I would love to dance like that. And then I caught that fever. 16 and a half or something like that. So, and I started going home and practicing. And every opportunity I had a chance to go downtown and see what was going on and dancing and this and that, then I picked up a little bit here, a little bit there, and I caught the bug, and yeah. And I met this guy, Black Louie, that danced a lot like his name. The guy that danced that night was Paulie. Then I met this guy named Black Louie that danced similar to Paulie, and I started learning a little bit off of him. And then he became like my partner and this and that, and he was teaching me like an apprentice,
Wow.
So
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. So let me ask you this. So you go to downtown and you see this guy Paulie. Right now,
right.
first of all, what club did you go to when you saw Paulie?
Right.
And did you meet him? Would you able to
Yeah.
meet him, talk to him, become
Yeah.
friend him?
Yeah. Well, I didn't become friend him and all that because he was like a king. I was 16 years old. I think he was like 21 or something like that, and he was real popular, man. Let me tell you, when he finished, everybody was around him, and he was like a king, and I was like I said, I was a 16-year-old thing. They introduced me to him, and I was a pleasure to meet him, this and that. And I told him how good he was, and that I loved the way he danced and this and that. So I was like, wow, But I didn't tell him I was gonna try to dance like him either, and all that. So Black Louie was like, he knew that Black Louie was gonna teach him and all that and this and that. So uh, Black Louie knew him and this and that, but I don't know if they really got along and all that. I don't know if Paulie like that he was doing his moves. I don't know. I don't know what was going on between them. But Black Louie became my partner. Yeah, but and then after that, we didn't see Paulie dance for no more for a while. It was maybe I caught him, I don't know, like after a year or two, and all that, he wasn't around no more and all that. So, but Black Louie was around and Black Louie, anyway, we was away from those clubs. I think it was the Pegasus. The club was the Pegasus. I remember that club because a lot of clubs had after hours. You know, when a club was winding down in one area, like 2, 3 o'clock, the other club was opening up to 3, 4 in the morning, 5. So it was pretty good. Black Louis was my partner for years until he started getting messed up on drugs and stuff like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let's
yeah,
talk. Let's talk about Black Louis right now. Did you meet him that night as well, and did you become friends with him
yeah.
right away?
I met him that night. I met him that night because he was like, "Yo, watch this guy," and I was like, "All right," because everybody liked Black Louis. So they were like, "All right," and I was like, "Oh, hey, all right." They were like, "This is Black Louis, this and that." And I said, "Hey, my name is D, this and this and that." And he was like, "Hey, all right, yo, you ever seen some good dancer? Watch this guy." And we both watched him and all that. And he told me, "Yeah, I got a similar style to him and this and that." So for real, man, I really would like to learn how to dance. He said, "Yeah, well, come to the clubs. These are the clubs I'm in: the Asylum, the Pegasus, the Zoo, the Contiki, all these places. You go to these places and you'll find me." And I would go, and sure enough, I would find him. And then he would like, "Hey, what's up, young man?" Boom, boom, boom. 'Cause he was older than me. I was like, I think 17, 16, 7, going on 17. And I think he was like 21, 22, like Paulie's age. They were a little older, They were out there for a while. And then we were coming right behind them and all that. So yeah, yeah. And then, but
Okay,
yeah, I learned a lot from him.
awesome. All right, now, do you know where these guys were from, Paulie and Black Louis?
Well, Black Louis was from Manhattan and Paulie was from Brooklyn,
Nice.
that I know of. Everybody was like, "Yeah, he's from Brooklyn." So,
Okay.
big props to Brooklyn
Okay.
yeah.
And now Black Louis, he said he kind of took you on his wing, teach you a couple things or whatever.
Right, right.
Now how was his dance? Was his dance pretty similar to Paulie's? And
Yeah.
what were some of the things that he taught you, if you could
You
kind of
know,
describe?
well, he taught me how to do the spins, the dips, and all that because we spin different. We would spin, man, like we would bring our leg up and do a spin and all that, and this and that, go real close to the floor and spin up and come back down, and then we would jump back, jump forward. And sometimes we would jump actually up in the air and then come down spinning and stuff like that, which was hard. It took practice, but we used to do it and all that. But like we saw it done before, and we thought, and then after that, he was doing his moves, and then I started adding my little stuff with my arms and doing things with my arms and going down, up, and doing little different things that I used to learn from a lot of other guys. Like there was a guy named Taylor, there was a guy named Bones, there was a guy named Raul, and they all had their own style of dancing. And then we would go there, and we went into no battles. We were like, "Look what I got, and look what you got," and this and that. But it wasn't like a thing of offense. Like, "Oh, nigga, you ain't nobody. Well, you can't deal with me." You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. It was like, "Hey, hi, wait, what's up? What you doing tonight, nigga? Hey, well, I'm over here dancing, brother, and this and that. Oh, me too, bro, and this and that." And we'll get on the floor once in a while and dance with each other, see what you got, what this guy got. And if you like what another man got, then you'd be like, "Yo, I like that move, Taylor. I love that move, Louis." It wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, don't steal my move." I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna take that shit. I'm gonna practice." And then you put your niche to it, and you just do you do you. You
Awesome.
do you. Everybody did that. There wasn't nobody copying nobody. That's we were similar
Hmm.
and all that, but we nobody copied nobody to the dance exactly like the other guy. Or you dance exactly like the other guy, exactly like him. Yeah, you
Right.
did a move that he did, but you didn't do his whole dance routine. He had his own routine. You know.
Got got you.
You know.
Okay,
You know.
that's great. All right. So the more you go out, the more you start meeting different dancers,
Right.
seeing different styles,
Right.
um,
Different clubs.
different
You know.
clubs. And now
Mhm.
let me ask you this: what was the music that you heard, like when you saw Paulie dance? Do you remember the music that was
Yeah.
played and all
Well,
these
well,
other
I
dancers?
remember the record that he danced was Power. I forgot who made that record, Power.
Oh,
And
it
then
was
just and then
Earth,
after,
Wind& Fire, I think.
right, right. Oh, matter of fact, you're right, Power. And then after that, it just begun, Sex Machine. You know, a lot of freestyle music that you could dance on your own. That you can just do things. A lot of Motown songs. and you would
Mhm.
just do your own steps all over the floor. You'd be all over the floor. You wasn't like stuck in one area and just that's it. You know, you would move around. You would dance with different people dance with you. It was a beautiful thing at that time. Let me tell you, that's why I got infatuated with it at that time. I was like, yo, I really love this thing about dancing. And I was so happy when I left the gangs and all that. I said, wow, because a lot of my boys didn't make it, you know? A lot of guys stood in the streets for more time than they should have. Put it that way. And you know
Absolutely.
what happens when you stay in the street more than what you should.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, what about the DJs? Do you remember any of the DJs' names in these
Mm,
places? Or was it the
Well,
same
the
DJs,
DJ,
or every DJ, every club
the
had its own DJ?
yeah, no, the one that we used to go to a lot, the Asylum and the Kontiki and the Forbidden Fruit and all that. I remember this guy named Greg. I don't know. And then the guy that grew up with us named Spike. His name was Fernando, but then he put himself Spike. He went over there learning from them and all that. How they would play their music and this and that. How they did the cuts in between to make one song come into the other and this and that. And you know, they usually played the whole song. They didn't play like that. Now they play like a little portion of one, and then they cut it and all that. Before you get to get off on the record, they already cut it. You know, that time they let the record play and this and that. So Spike, uh, he would learn from them, take it home, and then we would go to Spike's house in Crimmins on the fifth floor, and he will play the music while he's practicing the music. We will be practicing our moves and all that. Even Floyd used to go up there. Floyd Chisholm used to go up there, and he used to dance up there and all that, practice, on himself and this and that, and this I want to spin and this and that, and and he would talk with us, we would talk with him, and you know, yeah,
Okay.
he was great. He grew up. He because say he grew up with us. I grew up with Floyd. You know, yeah,
All right. Cool.
so
All
you
right.
know,
Now let me ask you this. Now the style of dress. Now you took off the colors, right? You took off
right,
the colors, and now you're going out to these clubs. You're 16 years old. Now,
right,
what was the style of dress like? Can
right.
you elaborate a little bit of what the
Yeah,
style was?
yeah. Since when I was going downtown and all, I saw a lot of guys wearing Applejack hats. I don't know what they call them, bike hats, cap hats, or whatever. But we used to call them the Applejack hat. You had to put a little paper inside, rim it up, they make it look good. Then we would use a nice shirt, a nice blazer, or a nice vest, nice pair of pants. Usually they'd be a little loose because they were either your brothers or you just bought them a little too big. And a nice pair of shoes. That was the most important thing, was the shoes that that you're gonna dance in and all that. No sneakers.
Hmm.
I ain't never seen the guys up dance with sneakers. I ain't never seen guys up there with sneakers like they do it now. Like sneakers, it's a big deal. We used to have to wear shoes. They wouldn't allow you in a place without shoes. So that all that with sneakers stuff wasn't at us. That wasn't
Right.
at our time. Yeah. But that was the outfit and all that. And people used to wear different suits. People wore suits. People wore different blazer colors, different this, or just a shirt, and and this and that. But everybody went neat. Everybody went neat, and the girls dressed nice too. Girls went in dresses, nice pants and all that. Nobody went like rag, or anyway, nobody judged nobody really how they went. But I was just saying, I noticed that everybody was dressed nice. That what made me want to dress nicer, and
Gotcha.
get this one, But I
Gotcha.
remember the dance when Louis used to do it, and when I saw Paulie dance, that they had the Applejack hat, they had the blazer, they had the nice shirt, baggy pants, and the nice shoe. That I figured that was the way that the dance would look the best. I don't see how that dance, the way that we used to dance at that time, would look good with an Adidas suit. I never. I never wore Adidas suits and none of that stuff. I don't know what Adidas suits was. I don't know that they talk about all that and Adidas shoes and all that. That came way after me.
Got you.
That came
Got
way after
you.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adidas came later. So, but
Yeah.
you guys were looking fresh. Now
Right.
you got the fresh hat on now.
Right.
Nice shirt, the chain. Now, was this
Mm.
kind of a hat similar to the Applejack hat? Because us
Yes, it was
younger
it's
generation,
similar.
we don't know what
It's
that is.
similar, but the Applejack look a little bit more like what you got on.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, and it was nice and round. It had the button in the middle. Man, I always saw Willie like try to get that hat. So when he was doing his shows and teaching these people, man, to dress up like that and all that, like he never
What
listened.
about
He
this?
was, But
Is this
anyway,
kind
that's
of
his.
what you're talking about right here?
Huh?
Let me show you. Hold on.
There you go. That's it. That's it. And then we will fill it up in the front. But there will be all one color. I will wear only all one color, like a brown or black.
Uh-huh.
Yep, that's it. But we will fill it up in the front. In the front, we'll fill it up. Boom,
Oh,
and then
that's
you will
cool.
fit in that. Yeah, that's it. That's the apple
Oh,
jack. God damn, boy. Why you ain't lend that to Willie, man? Yeah, you got me with that one, boy. That's it right there, man.
awesome, awesome.
I
All
see that
right.
hat. I smile when I see that hat, boy. That was part of the uniform. That's the last thing you will put on. Yeah, you'll be like, yeah, I'm out the door.
That's nice.
You
That's
know.
nice. Anything else
Yeah.
you want to add before we move on about clothing wise?
Nah, we just like I said, we didn't have much. We used to borrow stuff. I borrowed stuff from my brothers. My brothers borrowed from me. I borrowed from a neighbor. Well, from my boys. Like our boys. Let me get that shirt. Let me use that shirt, and let me wear that, and let me wear this. We were pretty good like that and all that. And then we started getting little jobs and buying little stuff, a little nice shirt, a little nice thing. We would actually walk down the avenue and be like, yo, I want that shirt for tonight. I want this thing for this, or, and we will hustle the money to get it. Whether, I don't want to say like selling weed and none of it. That's what we used to do. We used
Uh-huh.
to sell weed and all kind of stuff and all that. So to get whatever we needed to go dancing because we were raised $20. We were rich, bro. We had $20. We were good. We were good in the pocket.
Nice.
Listen,
Okay.
can I take a little break for a minute?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely, absolutely.
okay. Let me take 5. I gotta use the bathroom.
Okay.
Take
All right.
take 5.
I'm
Okay,
gonna take some of these comments and go ahead do your
okay,
thing. I'll be here.
okay, está bien.
All right.
Oh, you heard that? The clack.
All right. So we are in the middle of an amazing interview. Got a lot of comments over here. I want you guys to get your questions ready. I'm not doing any questions right now. I'm gonna wait till the end for that. Let Didi go through his story, and we don't want to interrupt him and get him off track, but we definitely are going to do some questions and then towards the end. So, if anybody got any questions, now is the time to think about it. Get your thoughts together. This is a very exclusive interview. This brother is, as far as I know, his first in-depth interview, and he is a legendary rock dancer, freestyle rock dancer, and he was one of the first to really influence the Bronx in his style of dance. So super happy to have this brother in here. So yeah, we got quite amount of people in here. I'm gonna go through and see if I can go through some of these comments.
Take a 5.
Um,
Let me take a 5.
got quite a few people in here. Um, Pipero, we got Frank Rojas. We got, let's see who else is in here. Kate. We have Kate. Let's see who else we got. Foolish. Mr. T. Victor Figueroa. Pastor Crespo. Uh, Mildred. So yeah, like I said, guys, just get your questions ready and everything like that. So
You know what? I'm back. I'm back. I'm
Okay.
back. You mind if I take this hat off for a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. Do your thing, bro.
Yeah, so you can
Do your
see my
thing. Get
hairline.
comfortable. Get comfortable.
Yeah, so you can see my hairline. Mm. See that beautiful hair I got.
Okay.
Que cojones. Not because it's that way you can see my eyes a little better too. Because
Okay.
que como go pasa. Anyway, that's all right. Let's keep going.
All right. All right. So I want to talk about a little bit about rubber band. Okay. So
Oh,
rubber
okay.
band is a very influential person in this dance in this culture.
Right,
A lot of people talk about him. There's a lot of
right,
myth. There's lot of myth going around about him. A lot of
right.
just kind of this mysterious figure who
Yeah,
to hang out.
cause he,
Sources saying in Brooklyn he was
yeah,
popular, in Bronx. I mean, he was
yeah,
all over the place.
yeah.
And so a lot of the older generation will
Right,
mention him. So he kind of gets a lot of the credit for
right,
really establishing this dance, spreading it, influencing it. Some
right,
people might even say, creating it. What's
right.
your experience with rubber band? Can you talk to us?
Oh man, let me tell you. When I first met Rubber Band, it was in Brook Avenue. I didn't know him that good. I was just hanging out with the fellas, just hanging out and this and that, and joking around and this and that. So here comes this guy named Rubber Band and all that. Said, "Mira, que viene Rubber Band and all that." We used to speak a little Spanish too. And I said, "Okay, está bien," and all that. Said, "Mira, quiere bailar contigo, contra ti." And I was like, "What?" Yeah, he wants to battle you. I said, "Battle me?" So he called me out. He said, "Mira, David, Didi, tú eres Didi, ven para acá que te voy a enseñar dos, tres cositas." And I said, "Tú no me puedes enseñarme nada a mí," and all that. So we were like there. So he was like, they put the jukebox on. Then those days they had the big jukebox, and he just started dancing. And I was looking at him, and I was like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" And this guy was on the floor. He was the first guy I saw doing the break dancing that will go on the floor. Because I tell you, I never went on the floor. I never went on the floor. He went on the floor. He just spins on the floor with his legs. He would take his leg and go around it, and he would move up. He would do the thing like they do breakdancing, a little bit of breakdancing now. Not as much like they do it now, but that's how he would dance at that time. And that was like new because
Mhm,
I never saw it and all that. So yeah, he would call me out wherever he saw me and all that. And I didn't really like him too much at first. So let me tell you the truth, because everywhere I saw him, it was an argument and this and that. And then after a while, we started becoming really good friends. Like after a while, we will be like, "Hey, tú sabes cómo estás? And how you doing, nigga? This and that. Coño, me gusta cómo tú bailas." That's the first one. When he first told me that he liked the way I danced, I was like, "Oh, okay," because I like the way you dance too. Is that I no te acostumbrado. I never seen it before. Not even in the clubs. I never seen it. So and then he started going to clubs, and I was there, and and we went battle like after the years got there, so like 2 3 years, we didn't battle as much as we used to. People were instigated. Ahí está Rubber Band, ahí está Rubber Band, mira, ahí está Didi, go Didi, go Rubber Band, go. You know how people instigate stuff. And then once in a while we would entertain each other and break on each other and all that and all that. But after that we would hug each other and away we would go, you know what I mean?
mhm,
But after a while, we were gonna surprise everybody before he passed away. Me and him were gonna surprise everybody because we were starting to practice, do a little practice. He took me to his house and we were gonna do like a little routine, like me and him. We were gonna become partners, and we didn't want nobody to know. We didn't want nobody to know, like that. So that way, the next time they called us out, like, Didi, made that Rubber Band and all that. And they go, "Oh, you got your partners," because that time the guys it started becoming two people dancing and two
mhm,
people dancing. Like two guys dancing, two females, whatever wanted to dance. And when they were gonna call out the partners one night in the asylum, we were gonna go like, "Yeah, that's my partner there," and he was gonna be, "Yeah, that's Didi is my partner," and I know there was people were gonna go in shock, but it didn't get to happen because of what happened in St. Mary's Park. You know, it's hard for me to talk about it, but it was a hard day that day. Like the way he passed away and everything and all that because I knew we were gonna shock the world. You know, we were doing little routines where we saw each other. We didn't stay talking a lot, but we would be like, "What are we gonna throw this? And when we're gonna do that?" When you do your spin, you jump over my leg, and then you do your spin, and this I'm gonna get up, and I'm gonna do my spin and get up on your back like that. You know, it was a hard time. You
Gotcha.
know, so
Gotcha.
so when he passed away right there in St. Mary's recreation center.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
before we get into his death, real quick, um, so when you first met him, he came to the. Did he come to the block? And you
Yeah,
guys
he came up Brook
had
Avenue,
sex in the
100,
street?
yeah, 138th Street in Brook, which he had, I can say he had balls
Okay, so
because
you
it was
come
like
out and challenge your
it
man
was
on the
like
street.
you coming to my neighborhood to challenge me, and you come in with a couple of people with your people, and you're like, yo, where's Didi? There's Didi. ¿Dónde está Didi? Quiero ver Didi. Didi, ven, dile a Didi que estoy aquí, que estoy listo. And I'd be like, because he spoke Spanish, he didn't speak English, not to me anyway, and not to nobody that I knew of. He said, dile que estoy aquí, and then I would come and I'd be like, yo, then they'd be like, Didi, yo, there's this guy, Rubber Band, want to see you over here. He said he want to battle you or challenge you, and I would like, challenge me, and he's like, what? Who is this guy? And then I would go, and they would put us to dance with each other and all that. He did his shit, I did my shit, and people applaud for him, people applaud for me. You know how it is when you got your crowds and this and that
Mhm.
and all that. And we would both look at each other and say, yo, we see you on the next one, you know? And that's how we left it, you know? And
Okay.
after the years, we became better friends, you know? After a while, you got a guy that irritates you, but then you get to know him and then you like him. Well,
Hmm.
that was our relationship,
Okay.
you know?
All right.
Yeah.
So now you're saying that this time you was already in the clubs and you was dancing.
Yeah. Right.
You didn't see him in the clubs. You saw him in the
No.
street first.
Yeah, I saw him in the street first. That's the first time I saw him was in the street. And then I saw him in St. Mary's Park a lot, you know, in the center and like a lot of the schools. We used to borrow the school yards and all that. And the guys used to bring out, that's when guys started bringing out their DJ music and all that. After the boombox, they bring out their turntables. Guys were practicing more on their music and this and that. That's why I said the music used to play longer before they started doing a lot of cuts. And on my era, they let the music play. And then when the music played, and then we would dance and all that. And then, he would pop up and I pop up. And maybe if the other guys started popping up, and be like, oh, I want to dance too. And I want to dance too. And we were like, oh, join, bro. There's no problem. And this and that. And see what you got. It was like, yo, let's see what you got. It wasn't like,
Okay.
how dare you? None of that. It wasn't like, how dare you come over here and then, yo, see what you got, Papa. Let's see. Let's get out there, you
Okay.
know?
All right.
And
So now you talk about the St. Mary, the rec
right,
center, the parks, the
right,
school parks, and everything. DJs started coming
right,
out. Now, is this you're talking about like 73 around
right,
there, 73,
right.
74? And
74, yeah.
is this like
Yeah, I think he passed
DJ
away in
Spike?
74.
Was this Spike the DJ, or were there other DJs as well that would come out and play this type of
Yeah,
music?
there was other DJs. Jelly Bean Benitez used to
Okay.
learn in our basement. Matter of fact, we used to have basements, a lot of basements. I forgot to bring that in. There's a lot of stuff goes through my mind, but we used to have a lot of basements, like because when the Bronx was burning down and this and that, or they abandoned a building, the landlord didn't want to have nothing to do with that building. They forgot to shut off the lights, and we would go down in the basement. Or I don't know how the guys would put the lights on, but we would have a whole basement for us, and we would fix it. I mean, fix it like a club. And we would throw a lot of hooky parties and a lot of night parties. And we did a lot of hooky parties, bro. Let me tell you one thing. And it was fun. It was like $4 to get in, $3, $2. I bet. Sometimes we didn't even charge. We was just like, just come in, and the basement would get packed. To 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The basement was packed from 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Those basements were packed, and people were dancing and just begun Sex Machine, and they even started doing that. Then even people even were doing the hustle at that time as it was slowing down. Because
Gotcha.
as the hustle started getting more popular, we were slowing down. You
Gotcha.
know,
Gotcha.
you know.
Okay. All right. So I want to ask real quick
Okay.
about these contests, right? Now,
Right.
2-on-2, you said at first it was just like, soloists, and then
Right.
you started becoming pairs, partners,
Right. Right.
right?
My partner was Black Louie. Yeah.
Black Louie, okay, and he's the
Yeah.
one that kind of showed you the ropes or what
Right.
have you. All right,
Right.
now what are some of the other partners out there, and what were these contests like? Were there actually winners, judges?
Oh yeah, they had everything. They had everything. They will call you out. You know, you have your partner. They'll be like, "Hey, DEE DEE and Black Louie." You know, and then they have Mike Dominguez from Manhattan with his partner. They have other people from because Mike, I think Dominguez was from Manhattan. Then they have Bones and Taylor would usually dance together, even though Taylor was from the Bronx and Bones was from Brooklyn. Then they had some other guys from Brooklyn and this and that. Well, they were coming up, but they weren't as good as us. But they were coming up and they would throw the contest. You know, it wasn't so many people in the arena at that time. You know, it was like the same people. After a while, you would be like, oh, the same guys. You know, like you had to pass these guys to be have a name. You know, like because it wasn't like a whole bunch of guys that I met that I was like, oh, and then it started getting more and more popular, and more people were dancing, and more people were practicing, and you know, more guys were coming out. Like I was saying, like when I was coming out of it already, there was other people coming behind us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Willie was coming behind me with Willie Whip and stuff like that. And Willie Whip were doing, they were great. You know, I was like, wow, you know that, you know. And there was this guy named Tony. But like Tony was doing good with this girl Eileen. He used to dance with a girl before he became my partner, and you know it was even girls used to dance at that time. Girls used to freestyle, you
Mhm.
know, and we did a little like break, but not like break like these guys. Like I said, I don't remember us throwing ourselves in the floor. That's the difference
Mhm.
about us and the way they break dance now. That they do the spin on the heads and they do all the stuff on the floor. Now that we didn't do that. The only one I can say that maybe he was before his time was Rubber Band doing that stuff. I don't know where he got it from, but he was good at it. You know, like it made sense when he danced. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh man, this guy's so off key, or this guy. No, he was right on key, and he did a step, and it fell right into place. And I would do my step, fell into place, and that's what people like. Because some people like the way I dance, people like the way he danced, you know, and stuff like that. And I kept practicing and practicing and all that. And a matter of fact, I almost got it as I don't know if I got better than Louis that he was teaching me or what, but I don't know if he was in the decline and I was coming up because I enjoyed it more, and maybe he was already like 26, 27. I was only 20. I was going on my 21, 20. You know, I was young. I was a puppy. You know, but you know that it was a great time. I tell you, we have fun. That's all I can say. We had a lot of fun.
Okay.
You know.
All
Yeah,
right.
but
So,
one thing I want to say, yeah, this thing I want to straighten up about Rubber Band 2 and all that. I remember in St. Mary's, a lot of people got different stories and all that. I know why he passed and this and that and all that. But I remember him passing in mine and Willie Marine Boy's arms, and before he got put in the ambulance and all that. And the way after a while, I heard it was over $1, which I can't believe. But that was right before we were gonna announce in St. Mary's that we were gonna be partners. We already had a little routine down, and you know, and I knew that when he went to the St. Mary's, I closed my eyes and all that because sometimes I think and it's a little painful in some of the stuff. Some of it was very joyous, and some of it, you know, you got to understand that when you lose a person like that you practicing with him, and he was gonna call me out, and I was gonna call him out, and this and that. But and then when we got in the middle, or they called us out. They were like, "Oh, get your partners together." Like Enoch was dancing with Frank, you know, and they were trying to get in the show and this and that and all that. And we already had routines down and all that. They were apprentices when we were dancing. Frank
gotcha.
Rojas and Enoch, but they were just learning right behind us and all that. And Willie Whip and Will were already learning way before they learned and all that. They came before them. Everybody had their turn, in other words, and all that, you know. So I just get mad when some guys try to jump the line. When you don't want to respect who was before you, then I don't have no respect for you, because you always should give props to somebody that you know was before you, and you even matter of fact you even using their steps, but you don't want to say that they're their steps. That's your steps, and that was a lot of bullshit for me. I didn't appreciate. I don't appreciate it. Now I never did. You know, but I know me and Louis and all of us were first before Paulie came first. Me and Louis and all of us came after. Then Willie and Willie Whip came after us. Then Frank and Enoch and all them came after them, and that's how it went down the line. And whoever wants to debate it, prove it. I don't know what to tell them. Prove it. You
Got
know.
you. Got you. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. All right. Thanks for clearing that up.
All right.
So I just want to ask a couple more things about rubber
All
band
right.
before we move on. But
Okay.
um, so do you know where Rubber Band was from? Either what part of Puerto Rico or what part of the
No,
Bronx
I
that
don't
he
know what
lived
part of Puerto Rico, but I think he really came from Puerto Rico because he was like in those days, and not to talk bad because now I'm proud when they call me a Jibaro. But those days when they used to call you a Jibaro, you used to feel offended because the white people made you feel offended. But now in these days when they call me a Jibaro, I'm like, oh, gracias. I feel proud that you call me that. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
in those days, we used to call him like a Jibaro because that's how he was. He's Spanish down. That's all he talked, and the way he talked, like a Boricua, like the old timers. He would talk like an older man. Ven para acá y yo te voy a enseñar algo y ven acá, no tengas miedo. Ven acá que ahora es. And I'd be like, what the fuck this guy saying? Because I didn't speak Spanish that good. I
Yeah.
only learned Spanish in my house. In those days when I was going to school, believe it or not, the teachers they didn't want you to speak Spanish at all. I had one teacher that used to hit me with a ruler every time I said something in Spanish. And she would say, speak the English, speak the English, you in America, you in America. And I said, oh man, what the fuck is wrong with this bitch? You know what I mean? And I would be like, then I would go home and tell my mother. And my mother would get tight. She said, no, you boricua, you eres puertorriqueño, tú hablas español, todo que tú quieras, and this and that. And my mother, I think, even went to the school and confronted it about it and all that because we only learned Spanish in the house.
Hmm.
We didn't learn everything in the streets was mostly English because
Right.
that's what people don't understand that we were. It was ingrained to us. You had to learn English. It was mandatory. Not now. Now bilingual is a great thing. When I was growing up, it was like don't speak the Spanish.
Hmm.
And right, I don't know about you. And when I was growing up, it was like no speaking the Spanish. But now they want you to speak Spanish and
Oh
English.
yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
a bonus. Yeah, it's a bonus
Absolutely.
now. Now it's a bonus.
Absolutely.
All
Okay.
right.
You don't know where in the Bronx that he lived or anything like that about his background?
No, I don't know too much about his background. I even forgot where he lived at and all that. I think I went there once or twice or something like that. And then right after that, that's when all that happened because we were getting to know each other and all that and this and that, and we were learning how to get the routine down and this and that and all that. And we would see ourselves in different places, and we were planning on where we're gonna meet and where we're gonna do things. We talked more about it than what we did it. Like we did like one routine or two, and we were like, oh no, but we're not ready. And he was like, let's do it in St. Mary's. And I was like, I don't think we're ready and this and that. He's like, no, pero a mí no me importa, vamos a meter la mano. I guess he wanted to show some people that that's all because I was really strong in my area. So he was strong in his area, whatever. And then when the two areas came, we were like, boom. But like I said, after St. Mary's, me quitó mucho la gana. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I lost a lot that day.
Uh-huh.
I didn't, I
Yeah.
didn't, I didn't, I didn't feel like about dancing the way I did. I mean, I kept on dancing, and I won some contests and lost some contests and all that. But at that time, it was winding down for me. I was getting a
Right.
family and this and that, and I had to make a decision between the streets and the because I didn't have no sponsor. I didn't have nobody that would be like, yo, if you keep doing this and you could teach classes and this and that and all that. I didn't have none of that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then that's when the Latin Symbolics came out with George. I remember George that he had the Latin Symbolics and Willie and all them were in there and all that, and Floyd and all them stuff. And they could have kept going and kept doing things because they were a team. They were a unit.
Hmm.
I was grabbing guys from the street and dancing, grab a guy here, grab a guy there, and this and that. I even had my brother-in-law Victor Maldonado get in there and do that stuff too with me and all that. Even though he was a little fast for the music, but he's always been like that. Imagínate. But but the Land Symbolics, they were a unit. They were disciplined. They were trained. They were trained. They went out and they did their thing. And I'm very proud to know a lot of them. I knew
Okay.
quite a few of them. Eddie, Sarah, all of them. I knew all of them. Floyd, Floyd and Ned, they were dancing too and all that, and this and that and all that. So, uh, it was a nice thing. It was a nice thing. I used to love to watch Eddie and them dance. I used to be like, wow. And I used to be a good friend of Eddie Torres. I used to be a real good friend of his. So, and Sarah too. I was
Okay.
friends with all of them. So
Okay.
but you move on in life and all that things happen. You're growing up, you don't know what's going on. It was a good life and it was a rough life at that time, bro. It wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything because it made me the man I am today. And always try to be humble. I'm always try to be good with people and this and that and all that. But it was a lot of good times and a lot of bad times. But we have more good times in the dancing world. And
Gotcha.
on Sundays, in the fountain, when we used to meet in the fountain, and everybody used to go and be dressed up and hang and this and that and talk about where they were going to go or where they've been and where their plans are, where they're going out of state, going out of the country, or they were going to dance somewhere else. Because a lot of people expanded, they went different places after a while, you know. But Floyd was the one that broke the hustle world over here. I'll tell you that much.
Gotcha.
Floyd was the man there. There. I mean, he never. And Floyd was a very humble guy. Floyd was like me. Floyd never was like, oh, me, 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 me. Floyd always said, no, I'm good, but I'm not the king. Like me, I never said I was the king. I never said I was the best. I said I gave it my best, but I never said I was the best. I mean, and every night, uh, you could be the best, and there's nights you. That's like I told you that story with Willie. Willie said he beat me, Marine boy, and like I said, even a blind squirrel could find a nut. You know what I mean? So he said he beat me, but he could hear that all he want because I'll tell him how it is. I be like, he always says that, and I go, I don't know. Well, I don't remember that, but if you say it, it might be true. I don't know. I don't remember you being, I don't remember being challenged. For you to challenge me, you got to be in my face and tell me you're challenging me.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't be on the side and saying, yo, I'm challenging him. You got to be in my face. I said, mira, I'm here. Like Rubber Band used to do. Mira, estoy aquí. ¿Qué vamos a hacer? ¿Va a bailar o tienes miedo? And I'll be like, ¿tengo miedo de qué? Lo único que yo tengo miedo que tú eres feo con cojones. You know? And shit like that. That's how we used to be at it. You know what I mean?
Got
So,
you, got you. Did you remember any of his partners? Like they said he had a couple he danced with a couple other people.
no, I don't remember too much of him doing that. No, like I said, he was spurts. He would come in and then disappear. Then he
Okay.
would come and disappear. Like you said, like a ghost. He would be like, all of a sudden he's there, now he's not there. I don't know where that guy would go. And then he would pop up and all you would hear, DEE DEE, estoy aquí. And I'd be like, oh shit. Like I wouldn't see him for weeks or something. And then all of a sudden I hear that scream. Mira, llegué, ¿qué okay hay? Vamos encima, okay? And I'd be like, ah, shit. And there was days I didn't want to dance. And he would be like, and he would force me into a battle with him, and I'd be like, oh, this guy.
Did
And
you
he
ever hear
enjoyed it.
about did you ever hear about people like Mexico salsa?
Oh, yeah, Mexico también was another one that used to do his dance and all that. Mexico was pretty good too. Now that you just mentioned that, I even forgot about Mexico. Mexico
Okay.
was another one that threw down. And he did like Rubber Band. He did a lot of stuff like Rubber Band. He didn't do like us, but he did like Rubber Band. I tell you, that star started getting more and more popular. It
Okay.
started getting more and more popular. I don't know if that's why it got more into the break dancing that it is today. Like they do the head moves and the spin, they flip on the when they put their leg up and all that shit. Because Rubber Band did all that. He didn't spin on his head, but he
Yeah,
would do
yeah.
the spins and he would put his leg up and he would do the pose on the floor. And you'd be like, what the fuck this guy doing? What? I
Mhm.
ain't going on no floor. And I was like, yo, but he did it and he looked good at it. That's why he did. Like I said, to each his own. I give everybody props, man. Everybody should get their props. In your time, if you was good in your time and you did good in your time, you deserve it, man, because that's why we're here where we are today. Because if we didn't do what we did, you wouldn't be here today. You know what I mean? So God bless. Like I said, I wasn't the best. I never said I was the best. I said I always gave it the best. I tried my best.
Yeah.
To be
So
good, to be good at what I did.
so a couple of other names that you hear a lot about, like they talk about a guy named Salsa,
No,
Electrical. Um,
Electrical, I heard of. I don't know
okay,
too much about him, but I heard about him.
okay.
You know.
What
Mm.
about Little or Little Man? Little.
No, I don't know. No,
They say
I
that
don't
he
know
was
the name.
one of Rubber Band's partners.
Yeah.
Little.
Are those the rubber bands partners?
Well, some people say that they danced together at some point.
Oh, okay. All right.
Little
Well,
or
hey,
Little Man.
God bless, man. God bless, man. He was a good person, you
What
know.
was the other one? There was another name? Cowboy. You ever heard of a guy named
I heard
Cowboy?
of Cowboy too. I heard Cowboy too. I don't know too
Okay.
much about him, but I heard his name out there because you will hear names that from Staten Island coming down, Brooklyn, Long Island. You know, it started getting more and more popular where everybody was starting to meet. But the place to meet was Manhattan
Uh-huh.
and the clubs in Manhattan. That was the center place, Manhattan. I don't know
Okay.
about Brooklyn, maybe Brooklyn too, because Brooklyn was big and Brooklyn was very popular. But a lot of people met, you know, in Manhattan because Manhattan drawing the person. You know what I mean? Like a body or all, but you got to go to Manhattan because that's where the best are being at. You know,
Uh-huh.
that's where Paulie, all of us, Black Louis, Black Tony, all of us were down there. Bones, Black Taylor, and all that. You know, we were dancing out there all night long. You know, we were dancing and all that. And there was girls that used to dance. You know, there
Uh-huh.
was a girl named BB, a girl named Leslie, and them girls too. They used to dance with each other, and we used to look at them, and we be like, "Oh shit,
Okay.
yeah,"
Okay.
you
All
know.
right. So all right. So we're gonna wrap up pretty
Okay,
soon. So,
okay,
but we just gonna touch on real quick a couple questions about Rubber Band's
all
death.
right,
Now,
okay.
there's some people who are saying that he died in 1975, and some people saying he died in 1974. Do you remember the year?
I remember 74 more. I think it was 74 because I was it was before my 19th birthday.
Okay,
So I was 18 and right before my birthday, and that happened October and October sometime. And I remember 74, and then the next I was 18, and then the next month I hit 19. That's what I remember.
okay,
Yeah,
and
I was young. Yeah, and it hurt me a lot. It hurt me a lot that I remember that part. You know,
got you. And do you remember how old he was by any chance?
man, I would say I think he was older than me. That's for sure.
Uh-huh.
He was older than me because I think he would have been, I don't know, maybe he reminded me like 24 ish, 23, 24. Remember, maybe a couple of years, but not like, I'm not saying he was an old man, but I'm saying like he was a little bit more mature. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I was still growing. I was still growing in my roots and all that. But I would say 22, 22, 23. I
Okay.
say he was still young, you know. I think to me, he didn't look like an old dude, you know. He didn't look like an old dude. He looked young, fresh, but he had a character of a 22, 24, you know, 20, like, por ahí.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe people could tell me because, like I said, I was getting to know him, and I never got real personal. Like yo, how old are you? And this and that. Like all that we were finding out, and this and that. You know, like we were meeting spurts, and like
Uh-huh.
I said, we were getting down to do a routine, and that's what we really talked about more. Like where we gonna meet, how we gonna do this without nobody knowing. You know, because if they see me and you together, they're gonna be like, "Yo, I saw these two guys together. What's going on?" And so we always try to make it like hide out and all that. So, you know, there was times there was a lot of people we didn't even really talk to each other. Hey, ¿qué está mirando? Hey, I'm looking at you, nigga, and just keep it moving, you know. And then
Gotcha.
later on, be like, hey, Papa, I see you over here. ¿Cómo está? And, you know,
Okay.
I wish we
All
would have
right.
got to do a routine. You know,
All right. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for
yeah,
that. Thank you, bro. I
you're
really
welcome.
appreciate that. A lot of great information. Really
Bro,
feeling
thank
like
you
we
so
have
much. Yo, and
connected
what
a
I'm
little
saying is,
bit.
listen, just you see me here. What I'm saying is the truth. Like I say, I give everybody respect. But the ones that were before me, I gave them mad respect, and the ones that came after me, they gotta learn, and they know who I'm talking about. And I'm not gonna say no names and all that, but that shit gotta stop about you know, disrespect and all that because I don't want to be part of it. You know, I giving you, I talk with you, Vic, and I give you my word. Everything I said to you, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little anxious because you know we're talking about my past. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So I'm being honest. I'm not lying about nothing. I'm being straight up. But I would like the young ones that came after us to give respect to the ones that came before them, and just leave it alone already. And let's just move forward. And if you're still dancing, I applaud you. keep that flag going, like the break dancers and all that, and Crazy Legs and all those guys that came after us, because they came after us with the Crazy Legs and with the Adidas suits, the tango hats and all that. They came after us, and I give them, I give them mad props, because I couldn't keep. You're not gonna dance forever, you know what I mean? So if they grabbed the flag and they kept it moving, God bless them and all that. And I go, hey, I ain't got no problem with them. God, then they was in my era. We couldn't dance like they danced, but they couldn't dance the way we dance. But
Gotcha.
they grabbed the flag and kept them moving, and they made their own world. You know what I mean? So hey, God bless to everybody. You know what I mean? But I just want the young ones to give respect to the elder ones that were before them, so that way, when you become an elder, you want the same respect from the ones that you teach. You don't want
Absolutely.
to teach a guy, yeah, right? You don't want to teach a guy, and then later on he disrespects you. All
Okay.
right, Vic.
All
All
right,
right.
bro. Well, let me tell. I'm gonna. I want to do one more thing before we go, and I
Okay.
want to show you this video, and
All right.
just kind of get your thoughts. As we play it, and I know this is recent, and you don't move like you used to,
Oh my God!
but
It's not recent, but it ain't real far back either. That's in Orchard Beach, and all the girls me están cucando. Look, they're like, yo, come on out here, bro, come on out here, come on out here, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't. You can see I'm hiding. I really don't want to do nothing. I'm like, pero si me siguen cucando, I'll try something. But I'm overweight, and I'm trying to do something. Son, look, they're doing what I used to do. They're laughing at, look, they're telling me what I used to do. And I'm looking at them and going, you bitch. You know what I mean? Like, you fucking embarrassing me out here like that and all that. But okay, that was a great day. That was a great day. That was a great day. They gave me mad props, mad love, and all that. And I tried, but that's when I already getting that fibromyalgia. I don't know where I got that from, but look at them. Yeah, do it, girls. Yep, there you go. Do the dip, boom, boom. Yeah, yeah. And then right there, I would do a spin. There you go, right there. See the girl in the pink? I would do that, and then I'll do a spin. Here I go. She played me. I had to come out. She played me. I had to come out and show us. Yeah, what you doing, girl? You don't know nothing about this. See, but I was like, I couldn't do the. Yeah, see, I couldn't do the moves. Right there, I got stuck. I said, coño. If I keep dancing, they're gonna have to give me oxygen, bro. I'm like, coño. But that was a great day. I remember that. Thank you for showing me that, because that was such a great day, man. That was and all the girls there. I know all of them, and they were just no breaks, bro. They were like, "Yo, nigga, what you know about this?" That's Debbie and all that. Jelly Bean sister. Yeah, that's Jelly Bean sister in the orange there dancing. Yeah, and Sweepy, all that. Sweepy was another one that used to call me out wherever. Yeah, that's
really
Debbie. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, that's Debbie. That's the Jelly Bean sister. That he's a great DJ. That he's the DJ for Madonna and all that.
Hmm.
Jelly Bean Medina. Yeah, yeah. Look at that old man dancing on the side like that. I would have danced against him right there. Say, nigga, come here. Yeah, I wish I. Mira esa barriga, Pike. Look at that. Wow. I tried, man. They were like, yo, I burned them. They burned me. They look, I got that nigga. Finally. I knew I was gonna get you. See how that girl going in the pink? I used
Yeah.
to do stuff like that.
Who
Like
is
that.
that?
And then
Who is that?
and then right there, see how she stopped and all that. And then I used to dip down. And then when I came up, but then I did a spin. You know. But I just couldn't. Look, she doing the same shit I used to. I can't do it now. But I'm glad they remember. I'm glad they remember. It makes me feel good. You know.
Hmm.
Oh, here, who's that? Willie?
Yeah, that's Willie.
Yeah,
Oh, you see
I
the
play
floor
with you.
move that she did right there? The little step on the
Yeah,
floor and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah, I did everything they did there. Everything they did there. But I didn't stay on the floor like I didn't. There you go, Willie. Go ahead. Go ahead, Willie. Well, there you go. Epa. Yeah. Yep, those are my moves right there. My move that he added his little step of jumping up and doing the kick. See? Yeah. Yeah, that's him right there. He had his own little style doing his stuff. Yeah. See, that's my step right there too. Yeah, I
Oh,
didn't do that. Yeah.
that's really beautiful, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really.
and I used to dance with a cane. I used to dance with a cane and all that too, like a cane. But that was part of my routine. A cane, we used to do the cane. It was a lot of little things and all that. That man, those were good times. Those were good times, and the only bad times was of the people we lost. You know what I mean? But other than that, the good times they were good. And people were growing up. People were doing their own things and doing their own ways and all that. Some did good and some did bad. But when we were all in that club dancing and all that and having fun with each other, it was a great time. You know, everybody was friends. We ain't had too many. The thing about enemies when we went dancing, we never worried. Like I never went dancing. It was like, oh, I gotta be careful with this crew. I gotta be careful. It wasn't like, hey, I seen these niggas over there. I seen these niggas from Brooklyn. They coming from Manhattan. They're coming from Queens. They're coming from there. And the guys from Manhattan, they didn't know I was born in Manhattan. They all thought I came from the Bronx. I didn't want to shout out the Bronx and be like, oh no, I'm really from Manhattan, because then they would have been like, move back to Manhattan, boy. No, what you doing in the Bronx? I would be like, nah, I don't want to go back.
Right.
So but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but like I said,
yo,
right.
let me say real quick. Anybody have any last questions for DEE DEE? We're about
That
to
probably
wrap it
does.
up. If
Right.
anybody wanted to ask any
Right.
questions, I told them I'd give them a chance to ask any questions
Right.
they want to ask you. But
Right.
other than that, you guys look
Right.
like you're having a great time out there. Even though you
Right.
guys are older, you guys are having a blast. You're laughing, you're
Yeah.
dancing, and I think they were playing
That's
Rock
how it was.
Park. They were playing Rock Creek Park in that.
Right.
So you guys are,
Right.
really getting it.
Yeah.
And you
That's
can
how
see
it
a
was,
little bit of
man.
the flavor. I
Right. Yeah.
understand you guys are older, but the flavor's
Right.
still there. The
Right.
danceability is still there, even
Yeah.
in your older
Yeah.
age. So
Yeah,
really
and let me
amazing.
tell you right now, and not to cut you off, right now we see each other and we're somewhere, because every year we have these barbecues and stuff like that, and this comes around once a year. And my co-maestros is Janet and Dennis, the best hostess you can find, and they throw a barbecue every year and this and this and that. And my boy Junjun that just passed said all that, he used to throw another barbecue too every year for years already, more than 10 years and all that. And when they start playing the music, that's exactly how we will act. We will all reminisce of how we used to do. You know what I mean? That's why we had the barbecues and stuff like that. So I thank God that it's still some memories that were good memories of the dance time. That everybody gets together and and you don't see nobody judging nobody. Everybody's dancing with each other. Everybody's like, you know, and you could join with anybody and you could dance with anybody. It don't matter. And we did Rock Creek Park. We did a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? So I thank you for letting me do this interview with you. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
And maybe we could do something in the future. Who knows? And
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Absolutely.
this could
We're
be
always
part
available,
one.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
this could be
somebody
part
asked
one. And
somebody asked real
uh,
quick, Bang Swift said, do you, and I think you already answered this, but you said, do you consider Rubber Band the first break dancer?
that's the first breakdancer I saw.
Okay.
That's the first breakdancer I saw in the
Yeah,
Bronx. In the Bronx, I seen them on Soul Train and this and that. That they did that crazy stuff. But that's the first guy I actually saw in person do it in the Bronx.
got you. Okay.
And disrespected me. Tell him, yeah, was disrespecting me.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, that's it, bro. I don't see any
All
other
right.
questions. So I just want to thank
No.
you again. I want to give you your
Right.
flowers.
Right. Thank you.
You're a legend in the dance world.
Right.
And so, you and your time, you influence all the
Right.
generations after you. So,
Right.
I'm really grateful and thankful. I can't thank you enough.
Right. And I thank you so much for having me, man. God bless. Thank you.
All right. God bless you,
Okay.
DEE. We'll
Yeah.
talk later.
Okay.
Peace.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you soon. Gracias, man.
All right.
Okay.
Peace.
All right. All right. We're good.